and happens to be the Cook County Farm Bureau Young Leaders Chairperson, my daughter Jessica, who also is the agriculture teacher for Moments High School. So we try to keep ag in the family, so to speak. We do everything here: cactus, succulent, annuals, perennials, you name it, specialty plants, hanging baskets. We're known for being eclectic. We can pretty much do what most people don't. We have the regular crops and we have a lot of specialty crops also. I'm going to introduce you to Greg Stack. I'll give you a great background on. Greg worked for the Cooperative Extension Program for the University of Illinois for 43 years. When he retired, he came to Ted's Greenhouse. We are very lucky to have him. The knowledge is outstanding. We are available at all times. If you have questions, please call us here anytime. You can ask for Greg or Dan or myself, and we're always willing to help. We want to encourage people to grow and thrive at it. So Greg, can you come up here? I think he's hiding from me.
Can't hide from management.
Yeah. Everybody, this is Greg Stack. He'll be your presenter today.
This is kind of new to me, this whole virtual Zoom thing. I'm kind of a touchy-feely person. This is less than touchy-feely, but that's okay. Please, I got touchy-feely out here.
Please feel free, if you can't see something or you're having trouble hearing, please just interrupt us. Let us know. We want everyone to get the best experience. If you have a question, feel free to ask. Okay?
Okay. As Karen mentioned, this is going to be an in-person class as well as you guys on the screen here. So if I'm talking about something and I'm showing a visual to them, if you can't see it, let me know and I'll raise it up. I'll do something to make sure that you're part of the crowd here, even though you're spread out all over the place. I always like to ask, how many of you guys is your first time here at Ted's Greenhouse? 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's okay. But what took you so long to find us is another story. Where do you live? Shanahan. Oh, that's on the other side of the world. But that's okay. Okay, we're glad you're all here.
I go there to shop.
I'm glad you're all here. We again welcome you to be here. We're going to do this class, and then if there are questions during the presentation, please stop me. We'll try to answer them, as well as questions after the presentation. We've got from now until 3 o'clock to answer your questions, so don't run off, and we'll deal with it. So today's particular class is going to be building a succulent dish garden. Now, a dish garden, nothing more than a collection of plants with some kind of container, which you then can display at home. The kind of container we're going to use, you each have one of these things in front of you. You guys at home have the same thing. This nice logo container from Farm Bureau. Now, there is an issue with this container that I took up with Mr. Rohr, but that's okay. You guys at home will notice what about the container that's highly important when you grow plants in containers. I'll let you guys answer at home. What don't you see in the container?
There's no holes.
There's no hole, and we need a drainage holes in a pot that grows the plant, but you can kind of compensate for that if you're a good grower, and we'll make everybody a good grower. You guys out here, we managed to cut holes in the bottom of it. Now, is there somebody who does not want a hole in their container for fear it's going to damage their high-priced furniture? If so, we do have these things available. You can put a saucer under it and take care of that problem pretty easy. Okay, so a hole does help to grow the plant a whole lot easier. Okay, okay, so that's the one thing. The other thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be filling that container with a soil mix. Here at Ted's, we basically make our own soil mixes, and we have a variety of mixes depending upon the crop we are growing. So each of them is kind of tailored to fit the kind of crop depending upon what kind of crop it is. For the cacti and succulent crop, you each have a tub, and you guys have a gallon bag at home filled with the kind of mix that we are going to use. The mix is made up of 4 components, and I have these things right here. The first one is core. It's this stuff right here, C-O-I-R. It's ground up coconut husks. Heretofore, it was a waste product, mountains of it, where they grow coconuts. Didn't know what to do with it until the researchers got a hold of it and made it a valuable resource, which has basically helped taking the pressure off the peat moss business. And so that's core, ground up coconut fiber. The other one in your mix, and you guys at home, again, have this in your bag, is the white stuff. That's called perlite. It's basically a rock that's basically heated and popped like popcorn, and that's in your mix. The other one that's in your mix is lava rock, this red stuff right here. And then the final thing that we add to mixes, depending upon what we are growing, and again, it varies, is a small charge of slow release fertilizer. This is basically called Nutricoat. Some people call it Osmocoat. As it gets wet, it releases a small amount of fertilizer, and it will fertilize, I think, over what, 3 months? It's got a 3 month duration. So that's what's in a soilless media. There is no soil in this stuff at all. Earlier greenhouse operations had tons of soil, which they put into their mix. They had to sterilize it to get rid of the weeds, insects, and diseases. It was going to be hard to find good dirt, actually. You can't find good dirt anymore. And so these soilless mixes have evolved over time to basically take the place of soil, and it's actually a great media to use. And again, you can buy this stuff either from us, or you can buy, if you have a local brand you happen to like, that's fine and dandy. So that's what's in the container you have. Now, to get things started, and you guys at home, we're gonna get started. We're gonna take and fill this container with the soil media that you have in front of you. You notice there's no scoops or shovels. This is the time to get dirt on your hands, soil on your hands, or put the rubber gloves on, it's even better yet. Okay, so fill this container with soil to about maybe 1 inch of the top. And do not, underline, do not pack it. Just put it in. Don't stamp it down. Don't shove it in there. You do not want to pack it down. And I'll show you why in a minute.
I'll give you my third grader question.
Here we go.
Where do roots grow?
You gotta talk to these guys too.
Where do roots grow? Where do roots grow? They grow in the soil? Wrong. They grow in the air pockets in the soil. That's why there's always a big thing about. See, we got a farmer in the audience, so I know she should know this. The farmers make a big deal about soil compaction because it's actually going to eliminate the soil, eliminate the air in the soil. So here's a full pot of soil. It's filled right to the rim. And if I squish it down, and this cactus mix has this built into it so that it will not compact as easily as regular soils because the cacti need more air. But even this soil, if I compact it down, that's how much air I've taken out of that soil. So that was where the roots were going to grow. So now it's going to be harder for that plant to grow in that soil. That's why a lot of times on a country road, you'll see there's no dirt road. There's no growth in the tracks. It's not because the plant, the tires wear that out. It's because it just compresses the soil so much they can't grow there. So there's no air. Yeah, those are my 2 cents.
Okay. And again, that's a basic horticultural principle, which is very important. Plants need air spaces to grow in. Without that, and again, air spaces can be basically eliminated by packing, or if you water all the time, those air spaces get filled with water, and the plant basically suffocates, if you will. Okay, so you have your container filled. Now, we are going to be using 3 kinds of succulent plants. A succulent is basically a plant that has adapted to basically grow in areas that are a little more arid, bright sun, all that kind of stuff. Oh, I can do this. All that kind of stuff. And the 3 succulents that you have, and you guys have these at home, the one with the nice velvety green, blue-green leaves right here, that's called a calico. It's more of an upright grower. That's one of them. The second one that you have in your package or kit or on your table is one that kind of looks like a star. This is an aloe. There's all kinds of aloes out there. The one you're more familiar with is probably aloe vera. You probably have one in the house. Nice long green spongy kind of leaves that you use to treat burns and make your complexion just wonderful. That's an aloe. This is an aloe. And the third one, kind of a combination, kind of a rosette of things right here. That's called a haworthia. Okay. So these are 3 succulents. Now, the thing about dish gardens is that when you put a dish garden together, no matter what you're using, try to get plants that are basically similar in cultural requirements. In other words, succulents are basically highlight plants, maybe minimum water, well-drained soil, all that kind of stuff. If we try to put together a dish garden using some tropical, let's say like a philodendron and a cactus, one of them is not going to like where they're at because you're going to water too much to keep the philodendron alive, but the cactus is basically going to rot. So you can't mix those kind of things. You have to kind of put things that are similar. So if you're making a dish garden with tropical plants, it's all tropicals. Succulents, all succulents. Cacti, all cacti. And again, these are not cacti, technically. They are succulents. There's a thing that says all cacti are succulents, but all succulents are not cacti. And if you want, we can go out here in the greenhouse after this session. I'll show you the botanical thing that differs these things. It's a thing on the plant. So these are the 3 plants we are going to use. Now, you have your container filled. You guys at home have your container filled. Now's the time to get creative. What I would tell you to do, you can take these things out of their pots, dig a hole where you want to plant this, and you plant this at about the same level it was in the pot. Just dig a hole, put it in, put the soil back around there, and do not pack the soil around the plant roots. So have at it. Do whatever. Oh, you need plants, don't you? I kind of just sitting there looking at me like, what's he talking about? These guys don't have plants. You guys got plants in your kit. A plastic clamshell. Darn. A faux pas on my part. Oops. Can I say? I have my assistants going about doing this right now. See, otherwise they wouldn't have a thing to do. They'd sit up here kind of like twiddling their thumbs, but now they look like vannas. All these small vannas passing out plants. It's more fun in person than Zooming, but that's okay. Okay, when you get your plants, take them out of the pot, dig a hole, and plant your plant at about the same level it was in the pot. Shallower is better than deeper, so don't bury them too deep. You guys okay on the Zoomers? Any questions or comments or, okay, oh, I hear all kind of thumbs up, very good. The Zoomers are doing fine. The in-persons are doing fine. As you can see, this is not a complicated process. Dish gardens can be small little things, or dish gardens can be complex, almost like small miniature gardens within the house. Okay. Okay, has everyone got their plant material planted wherever you are located out there in Zoom land? Oh, very nice. Very good. Okay. Now, the next step, again, is depending upon what you like to do. Everybody has a selection of rock. You have lava rock. You have something that looks like small pea gravel, which is aquarium gravel. And then you have an assortment of decorative rock or stone. My suggestion is, depending upon what color gravel you like, either the dark reddish lava or the pea gravel, is to kind of what I call mulch the surface of the soil with one of those 2 materials, or if you want to use both of them, that's fine. You want to cover the soil so you don't see soil. You kind of make a nice layer using one of those 2 materials, whichever one you like. So again, you've got lava rock, you got pea gravel, like this. Just mulch the top of it, so you don't want to see any soil.
So one thing we get a lot with people who are planting containers is that they always want to put gravel in the bottom of the pot to improve drainage. And the reality is that makes the drainage more poorer. And the reason for that is when you add anything to the base of this pot, you're reducing the depth of the soil in any pot. And that depth is what actually creates the drainage. So I've always tried to explain to people, it's hard to explain it. Greg came with this great visual here. So this is a sponge, it's a regular old household sponge. I have it soaking in water. I don't know if that at home some people can see. It's just barely dripping. I'm not going to wait for it forever to drain, but so that's basically drained. When being a sponge is only like a ½ inch thick.
This represents the depth of the soil column.
Right.
Right here.
Now, if we increase that depth by going this way,
More water comes out.
more water starts coming out. And that's going to continue to drain for quite a while. But we've also, that's been increasing the drainage by like 5 or 6 times. So it's a 6 times deeper drain. But even still, if you go even from that to this, it's about twice as deep. It drains even more. The same sponge, just different depth of the soil. So when you add rocks to the bottom of your soil, your container, you're actually going to make it drain less. So kind of a fallacy that putting stones in the bottom is going to prevent that.
That's absolutely nothing. And again, this is something that in an agricultural setting, like say if you were in the middle of the state of Illinois down in Champaign County where their soils are, almost perfect for growing crops, nice black soil. If one were to take that soil and put it in a pot, you couldn't grow a thing in that pot because the column of soil in that pot is this big versus the one out in a farmer's field is many, 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 many feet deep, drawing that water through. That's why we have to modify it with amendments in a containerized situation, is to get this kind of drainage. Because field soil will not do it in a container.
And even for gardening purposes, if you know it's going to rain and you want to work in your garden, you do not want to go out there and rototill unless you know you can work that soil and get your planting done before the rain, because this, much like the sponge, once you rototill that soil, it's really not connected to that water column below. So if you rototill at the top 6 or 8 inches of soil and it rains, it's not actually connected to the rest of the soil yet. So it's just going to sit there soaking wet. It's soaked in very easily because it's loose, but it has nowhere to drain yet. Over the course of a few weeks, it will reconnect because it gets compacted again and start to drain together. But if you don't, it's going to just be that mud. So
Okay.
But if you're working the soil, you want to make sure that you can get it worked and get your work done before it gets wet again. I mean, I'm sure Heidi can attest to that.
Okay, you guys at home have a bag of various decorative rocks. Here we have a tray with decorative rocks. These, again, you can add to the top of the pot as you see fit. If you want some color, want some different texture, different shape, put a few of these around as you wish. There's slate in here. There's polished rock. There's some rock that are basically tumbled. So you can have just whatever you want to use, or if you don't want to use any, that's fine also. It's up to you. It's kind of like a personal little touch. And if you want to go home and add some small miniatures, if you have some miniature figurines or something, people work those into dish gardens also. Maybe you have a miniature burrow or something you want to put in their donkey or something. I don't know. That would work too in this kind of a setting. Okay. Now, you built this thing. These are living things that you put together. Living things require certain elements in order to keep them looking good. The first element that is extremely important with any type of plant on an interior is light. These things, as succulents, demand the brightest spot you have in the house, sunniest window you have in the house. Don't stick it on an end table in the corner behind the sofa. It will not be happy. It may not die, but what will happen is that they'll start to stretch. And they stretch, and they stretch, and they really look ugly. These things have a certain amount of class to them because each of them have their own little characteristics about it. So a bright, sunny window. And keep in mind, everybody's house is different. Windows are different. You may have window treatments on the inside, overhangs on the outside, trees, all blocking light from getting in, especially during the winter.
Low E windows.
Or you might have dirty windows, and God forbid we should have dirty windows in the house. No, we just don't do that.
Low.
Oh, low E windows. And energy efficient windows also cut out the light. And when you do put them on the window, give these things a turn every once in a while. You'll keep them growing straight. Otherwise, they'll start leaning toward the light. Okay? Number 2, watering. I would suggest when you take these home, do not water them right away. Let them sit for about a week or 2. And the reason why, and you may not do this if you're planting something like a tropical, but with cacti and succulents, you may have damaged or injured some of the roots when you take them out of the pot, putting them into your container. Those open wounds need to get calloused or covered over so that they don't allow entry for certain types of disease organisms, which will rot the plant. So let them get healed up, and then you water with enough water so that you get a little bit of soaking down into the pot. Now, because you have a hole in the bottom of the pot, you guys here, you can water so you start seeing water drip out the hole. That tells you the whole soil mass is now moist. You guys at home, because you have no hole in the bottom of your pot, what you can do is water, and then you can use your moisture meter. Every one of you has a moisture meter. It's called a finger. Stick it in the pot. If it's moist or damp, leave it alone. Or Ms. Bernanke came up with a skewer, wooden skewer thing. Kind of like, yeah, wooden skewer. Put it in a pot. If it comes out moist with soil on it, it's moist. Now, I often get the question, well, how often do you water? There is no time schedule. It's not a weekly thing. It's not a monthly. It's whenever they need it. And the time of the year oftentimes dictates. During the wintertime, these things don't grow very much. They're kind of in a holding pattern. They start to pick up growth in the spring and summer when they may need a little more moisture. So do not overwater. Tend toward the dry side. You'd be much safer on the dry side. Okay? The other thing about these plants that you have in the pot, most of them are fairly slow growing with the exception of the calico. That's the blue-green one with the kind of nice fuzzy leaves. That one tends to grow a little bit faster than the aloe or the haworthia. And the aloe and haworthia tend to be kind of mound-shaped things and kind of grow out this way. The calico will tend to get elongated. If it gets too tall, do not hesitate to take and pinch out the very tip, the center. That way you'll cause the side branches to start to grow and you'll get a much fuller, rounder plant, not something that's tall and going to fall over. So don't be at all hesitant to give your plant a little pinch every so now and then. And that's basically all there is to that. Go, yes, question. Okay, pinching. I'm going to kind of show you pinching. I have a calico right here, okay? Calico right here. Pinching means you take out the very center of this plant right here, the very center. Okay. So, are there any questions you guys at home that you want to ask?
I have one question. How do you multiply if, let's say, one of the leaves fell off?
Okay.
Or are you able to?
Basically, the calico you would grow by taking the pinch or this cutting, okay? If you're talking about the aloe, you'll see that at the base of the aloe plant, you see these little offsets. Look like tiny little plants at the base. And the same thing with the haworthia. You see little tiny plants at the base. You can take and basically cut those out and put those in their own separate pot, okay? So that's how you can propagate that. And the calico you can sometimes propagate by leaf cuttings too, which means you take a leaf like that and you stick that into a propagation mix and you'll get it to grow. So there's all kinds of ways that you can multiply these. And the other thing about these things is the fact that as this thing grows, you might start to see it get a little bit crowded. It's my suggestion that you don't let it get so crowded that they compete with each other and your quality goes downhill. Do not hesitate at all to dig up those plants, take them out of the container, maybe take off the offsets and either replant your container and use the offsets for some other project. Because if you let this thing go and go and go and go, especially these two right here, the Haworthia and the Aloe, they'll basically spread out and you'll get all kinds of plants and they basically don't start looking very good. So don't hesitate at all. You aren't hurting the plant any. You're basically, when you divide a plant up, you're doing it wonders. You're causing it to develop into a nice quality plant that has, specimen quality aspects of it. Did I answer your question? Whoever asked. Are there any questions out here in the audience that you'd like to ask that I didn't address? Did I do that good of a job? I would put the water on the pot, not on the plant. Is that what you asked? When you water, try to water the soil around the plant as opposed to dumping water in the plant. It's not critical, but that's just me. Yeah, something like the Haworthia. Water will sit in there and it could cause rot.
Actually, in the greenhouse, we do our watering. Never, ever would recommend that with any plant except the succulents, because if that water sits on a leaf, it acts like a magnifying glass, and it will actually burn some of the succulents. Like Echeveria, where it's a really tight rosette, the water will sit in the middle of that rosette because we're not watering on the soil, we're watering thousands of plants, so we're watering over the top, and that water will sit in there and actually boil the plant. So we'll do it in the evening, so then by morning it's dried off. We would never, no other plants here get watered after like 6 o'clock if we can help it, because we want them to dry off before evening for disease issues.
Another question that was brought up in the last session was, are these strictly indoor plants? These are indoor plants for you to enjoy indoors. They will not survive outside over the winter, but they enjoy a summer vacation outside in the summertime. Do not hesitate to take this thing and put it outdoors someplace where it can enjoy the benefits of lots of sunlight, good air, good moisture, all that kind of stuff. The precaution is this: when you take this container that's been inside all winter long, move it outside, like say about mid-May, after the danger of frost is past. Put it someplace where it gets light shade. Do not put this thing directly into a full open sun spot. It will get sunburned. So what you do is you put it in the shade and move it gradually to that sunny spot so it can acclimatize to that full open sun conditions. Yes, these plants are, quote unquote desert plants where they get full open sun and no shade, but they've been out there all their life. These are sheltered things right here. And again, what you'll find, so I put out my stuff, everything I have inside the house goes outside in the summertime. The plant that you bring in before the first frost is going to be totally different than the plant you put out there in the springtime. It just looks unbelievably great. It's grown quite a bit. It just looks like a really nice, fresh, nice plant, which may give you more plants to take and propagate off of. Okay? So don't be afraid to put that outside when time comes. Other questions or comments?
That's not a summer-long process either. We're not going from the darkness of a house, but we're going from the darkness of a greenhouse, which is substantially darker than outside. Well, a lot of times we'll do that in the afternoon. So we'll move them out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They get a few hours of sun that day, and then they get the whole nighttime, and then the next day they're okay. In the house, it would take a little bit longer than that, but not like, I left it in the shade for 3 weeks, or it's going to be a few days, maybe a day or two in the shade. then out to a little bit sunnier spot, and then within a week it should be in full sun.
Now, the weather we're having now is strictly abnormal. You aren't going to find this at all. Generally, they suggest that if you have houseplants outside for the summertime, bring them in before the temperature gets into the 50-degree range or so. Bring them inside, because 50 degrees to a lot of houseplants is cold. You'll cause leaf damage. Okay. Questions either from the Zoom audience or the live audience? You guys, I don't want to ignore you guys. I guess we're
Quick
good.
question for me again. I apologize if you went over this while I stepped away. Is there a certain temperature that these plants should be under indoors? So let's say one of your rooms gets warmer than the other. Approximately what temperature range should the succulents be in?
How cold do you keep your house? Because these things can take
72.
how many?
72.
That's plenty good. Like I say, these plants can take cooler temperatures. The succulent house that we have these things growing in, it gets cool in the evening. Like I say, maybe 55, 60 degrees. That's not a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
But you just don't want icy cold. But your house temperature is going to be perfectly suitable for these things.
Our warmest succulent house is 55 at night.
So,
That's the warmest one. Our coldest one is 42. So again, we know some can take
a little cooler than others, but say most of these can take cooler temperatures, and they prefer that. Actually, they really do.
And we'll kind of conserve on the energy. So in the daytime, I think we were venting at like 80 degrees. So we're not really in a hurry to vent, but we keep them pretty cool at night.
You know, if you keep these things in a warm location with low light, they just stretch unbelievable. Okay, but if you keep it a little cooler, it keeps the height down. Okay. Other questions or comments? Okay. Now, hearing none, I invite you guys to stick around for as long as you want. The greenhouse is open. You can walk around and look and see. If you guys were here, you could do the same thing. But don't be strangers. Stop on by every once in a while and say, I'm a Zoomie. And maybe Carol will have a parting gift for you. I don't know. Maybe she won't. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a great weekend.
You do the same.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thank you.